Hey guys, welcome back. This is your host, Phil from underKG.com. Now, we got the Galaxy S21 series. We've been wondering what's going to come after the S20, which was a leap forward from the S10 series. It didn't become the S11, but rather the S20. Now, here we have it, S21, S21 Plus, and the S21 Ultra. Now, before we get started, we borrowed these phones from the local carrier, SK Telecom, and this is a preliminary prototypes. And I didn't get much information from either the carrier or from Samsung. So knowing that you guys are going to be watching this after the unveiling, the Galaxy Unpacked 2021, some things might be wrong and there would be some things that we missed. And I hope you guys are cool with that. All right, before we begin, here are all the colors that we have. This is Phantom Black, Phantom Silvers, Phantom Violet, Phantom White, and obviously Phantom Pink. This is a pretty radical departure from the predecessor. They all had the camera island, which was pretty boring and not that good looking in my opinion. And this one is very distinct. It does extend from the body, but not really. What it is that it's an extension from the side metal frame. I assume this would have been a difficult and a pretty pricey process to do. Now, does it look good? In my opinion, yes, it does. There are some colors that I like and I don't. The pink one isn't really up to my liking, but the white one is okay. The violet mixed up with gold is actually a pretty nice touch. And I especially like the way that it changes the color depending on the angle of the light you give. The silver one is another good example. At an angle is totally silver, at another is somewhat blue, green-ish. Samsung started this color from the Galaxy Note 10's Aura Silver, and this is a great evolution. However, my favorite has to be the Phantom Black. Now, this rear glass is finished in matte, so it doesn't get a lot of fingerprints, and it goes very nicely with the matte camera island. And talking about the camera island, I especially like the S21 Ultra's camera island a little better. Now, the vanilla S21 and the S21 Plus both have the triple lenses, wide, telephoto, and ultra wide. The telephoto lens is a little bit weird. It's actually more of a wide angle camera cropped into the zoom manner, but we'll get into that later. Now, the Ultra has a different combination. There's a wide angle 108 megapixels, a very high resolution camera. Of course, that's pixel bend usually. There's a 3x telephoto in a classic manner, and there's a periscope style 10x zoom telephoto lens along with the ultra wide camera, and finally the laser autofocus. The reason for the added telephoto lens is because the 10x zoom is actually pretty far away, so when you're just trying to zoom in for 3x or 4x, you lose a lot of details because you'll be switching to the wide angle camera and digitally zoom in from there. So to fill in that blanks, they added the 3x zoom. This has been a common practice in a number of different manufacturers. The reason for only the S21 Ultra having the laser autofocus would probably be the 108 megapixel camera. The predecessor with the last gen sensor has been criticized for not getting the focus quite fastly or precisely, and Xiaomi, which used practically the same sensor, has aided that with the laser autofocus sensor, and the results were pretty good. So Samsung took a look and they also installed the laser autofocus on the latest flagship of their own. Now, since we're on the rear side of it anyway, there's an interesting fact. The S21 Ultra and the S21 Plus is covered in glass, while the vanilla S21 is covered in plastic. Well, Samsung calls it glastic, but it actually is more of a plastic. They started this putting plastic on the flagship phones starting from the Note 20, and I've always not been a fan. I kind of hated it, to be precise. But I'm not that mad about it this time because it's been pretty tricky for me to figure out which material it is. I had to tap it, put it in the fridge, take it out to see the temperature differences, and I finally figured it out by pushing it really hard against the internal components. This plastic bag, you can feel it, but not so on the glass. So that was pretty much the only way that I could tell without Samsung telling me. So they've done a really great job at neutralizing or hiding the material, the cheaper material, and for that, I'm not gonna be extra mad. Another interesting change from the last generation is the type of the panel. All the S20 devices had the curved edge panels. Now the S20 Ultra still has it, while the S21 and the S21 Plus has dished it. Now you have a completely flat panel. Some people might like it, some people might not, but it definitely would have been cost cutter. One of the things that Samsung saved up to make these phones a lot cheaper than their predecessors. Now, talking about the flat and the edge panels, here's another interesting fact. The S21 with the flat panel doesn't support the S Pen, and the S20 Ultra with the S Pen support has the curved edges, which is not the best surface finish to write things on. The S Pen, you say? Yes, the S Pen. It comes with the case. Well, you can use it without the case. The S Pen is a totally independent thing. It's sold separately along with the case. So you have to install it in the case. And here you go. On the side, you have a little slit where you install the S Pen. Since Samsung put all the buttons on the right side, this sadly was the only part they could have stuck the S Pen on. Now, since there are more right-handed people on Earth, including myself, this generates a little problem that it's not very easy to eject the S Pen out of the slot. So the easiest way obviously would be to turn your phone around, take the S Pen off, and start writing. Or you can reach in very unergonomically like that, or perhaps with a very bad taste you can do that. But either way, this isn't the best way to do it. Now, once you have uncomfortably removed the S Pen, you have the liberty to use it just like the Samsung Note devices. There is a dedicated S Pen menu. You can use all the stuff, including starting from the screen off memo, create note with pen button, air view, show pointer when hovering. As you can see right now, there is a pointer, and I am highlighting the respective menus. There are shortcuts, floating icons, open air command. One thing to note is that this isn't the Bluetooth enabled one like a lot of recent S Pen enabled devices. So you can't do air gestures like that. But at the same time, I also figured out that it wasn't a very popular option anyway. If you don't want to purchase that 40 euro option, you may use your friend's S Pen from their Note devices, and it works just the same. It's just that you don't have a place to put it in. All in all, Samsung confirmed that this wouldn't replace the Note devices right now. I think that means yes in a near future. But even if it does and you decide to opt in for the S Pen storing cases, please don't get the silicone one. This looks bad. Now, the rest of the internals has not changed that much. This is a 6.2, 6.7, and 6.8 inches of AMOLED panel, and these two are Full HD Plus, and this is QHD Plus, all working in 120 Hz. Interestingly enough, they took the QHD Plus resolutions away from these two and retained it on the biggest and most expensive, most powerful Ultra. At first, I thought this was a good idea because the last generation devices forced you to downgrade to the Full HD Plus if you wanted to use the fast refresh rate that was up to 120 Hz. So the pixels on the screen didn't match the actual pixels. They had to stretch it, making things a little more blurry. I figured a native Full HD Plus panel would be better if they're gonna force us to stretch the image anyway. But look at this, the S20 Ultra with the QHD Plus resolution now can pull 120 Hz adaptive refresh rate even on the QHD Plus resolution. So technically they didn't have to, and it probably isn't for the screen size because these two are only 0.1 inches away. This also, I assume, would be to cut some costs. Another great part they cut the cost for the rest of the devices is, of course, the camera. I told you about the compositions of the camera lenses, so we're gonna jump right into the camera app. Now, the interface isn't all that interesting. There are resolution settings, the motion video, the live photo equivalent, the timer, flash, and settings. Now here, instead of the 3 angles, there are 4. This one is for the 3x optical, and this one is for 10x optical. And everything in between is gonna be the cropped digital zoom images from the lenses before that. And here, lastly, we have the ultra wide. On the resolution, you can go up to 108 megapixels for the Ultra and 64 megapixels for the Vanilla and the S21 Plus. For video, it still goes only up to 8K 24 frames per second. Not saying that the 8K is a low resolution, 24 frames per second isn't exactly the optimal setting for most of the users. It's great for shooting movies, but I suspect most of the owners won't be filmmakers. And here's the option called Director's View. It gives you an option to see all 3 lenses, not 4, 3 for some reason, and yourself, the director. And you can move it around and change the option. This is picture-in-picture PIP. You can split it into 2, or you can just make one screen and see the rest of the 3 lenses. Another difference between the Ultra and the lesser 2 is the front-facing camera. This one can go up to 40 megapixels while you only have 10 megapixels on this. Again, most of the times the binned 10 megapixels is gonna give you better results, but on the Ultra, you have the options to take a selfie in 40 megapixels if for some reason you want to do so. Now, before I forget, let's go into the basics. They share mostly the same specs as either Exynos 2100 or Snapdragon 888, depending on the region. And the good news here is that the Exynos isn't all that bad this time. The GPU performance is actually better than I thought. And the synthetic benchmarks, as far as I know, is pretty close to that of the Snapdragon 888. God, it's hard to pronounce that. Rather, the bummer would be cut on RAM. The 5G models for the S20 series all had the 12 gigabytes of RAM. Now, the Vanilla 21 and the 21 Plus only have 8 gigabytes of RAM, while the Ultra has 12, and especially if you jump onto the 512 gigabytes of of storage, you get a whopping 16 gigabytes of RAM. The battery capacity goes 4,000, 4,800, and 5,000 milliamps, and they all charge via the USB-C port with up to 25 watts of fast charging and 15 watts of wireless charging. Of course, the reverse wireless charging, Samsung calls this the power share, is supported, so you can charge your watch, the Galaxy Buds Pro, or your friend's iPhone if you place it against the back of the S21. And I almost forgot, but this of course supports the IP68 weather protection. System-wise, there are not that many interesting features. It's just your Samsung drawer, there is the FM radio, region dependent, Samsung Pay, Galaxy Wearable, Bixby. Do people still use that? And if you swipe on to the left, you have an option to choose between Google Discover or Samsung Freeze. This is a Samsung's idea for free content like news articles or the videos. Interesting things to kill your time. Probably the biggest new feature would be continue apps on other devices. Just like continuity, you can carry on what you've been doing from your phone or tablet to other devices and also share your clipboard. You can copy here and paste there. But the caveat here is they are only supported on Samsung Internet and Samsung Notes. I hope they can expand this further. The rest of the things are pretty much expected. They are 5G devices. 4G versions also available in some regions. In select regions, dual SIM of course, but what you won't get is the micro SD expansion. They've killed it completely. I don't know why. They gave it a try for the Galaxy S6 and the Note 5. There was a huge backlash. They revived it, and now they are doing it again. None of the three S21 series have the micro SD expansion, so make your decisions wisely when you're asked either 128 or 256 or 512 in case of Ultra. As you have seen, the S21 Ultra generally has gotten better over the last year's model, and the S21 along with the S21 Plus is a mixed bag. You have a cheaper material on the S21. Although being heavier, you lose the micro SD expansion and you have to deal with the lower resolution in two devices. And the camera configuration is virtually the same. But the good news is that they cut a lot of cost on a lot of components, and the price tag has also gotten a pretty big cut. It all differs by the region, but regardless of where you reside, they're gonna be cheaper than the initial pricings of the predecessor. And my favorite part, they look a lot better, especially the Ultra, although it is a bit thicker. But a benefit from that is they rumble a lot less, because they have a larger area that meets with the surface. All right, all things aside, the S21 devices look pretty nice. There are a few disappointments and a few unexpected positive findings, but I like the fact that they decided to take a big departure in terms of design and the fact that it's not absurdly pricey anymore. All right, that's it for the quick look on the Samsung Galaxy S21 series. We'll come back with a review very soon. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comment section below. You can meet us on Facebook and Instagram. We'll see you guys later. Ciao.